I'm gonna rotate this tire forward. Watch that tire over there. If you know, you know. When they both turn the same way, that means posi. Welcome back to the channel. Look what the cat dragged in. And this is a pretty prime example, dudes, dudettes and dudes. Yeah, once you get these rigs kind of rolling and going again, don't just let them sit. We did some work on this last summer. Took it to our little local car show at church. Showed it off a little bit, and then it kind of got sat. It was parked right out here. You saw it all winter long, got buried in snow and everything else. But we're back on it now because I finally pulled the trigger and we're getting some Cooper Cobras for it. So the wheels and tires are off. They're at the tire store getting fancy new shoes. And here's the wheel spacers we put on just to kind of give it a little better stance. But what we're going to try and do today is, again, last summer and fall we went shopping at the Rock Hard Auto, or is it Hard Rock Auto? I don't know, what do you like better? Comment down below. Rock Hard Auto or Hard Rock Auto? We're going to go with Rock Hard for now. Anyway, we should have wheel cylinders, brake shoes, not sure about hoses, and not sure about wheel seals, but we're going to try and get some brakes on this hot rod, and then we can, you know, formulate a plan to finish it up and move it on to somebody else that's going to rip it around town. Took me a minute to find the parts. For some reason I was actually smart and put them inside, but they got a little wet. Looks like the box got a little moisture. Let's see what all we have here. Please have brake hoses. Please have brake hoses. I'm almost positive there's no wheel cylinders. We've got shoes. Shoot, no hoses. And we have wheel cylinders. Alright. Well, we'll have to see. Maybe these hoses aren't completely shot. Let's take a look here. Yeah, see, I've actually seen worse. All right, well, let's tear it apart. And I haven't even checked to see if the shoes are the right size or nothing. So we better get after it here and see what's going on. So I apologize. I think I started a thought there in that intro and I didn't finish it. But yeah, so this thing sat over all of winter until early spring here. And we didn't drive it. We didn't start it. We didn't roll it around. So what we had when we did get it running was a carburetor with a needle and seat that would not shut. A little tippy tap took care of that, but this, we were leaking, hemorrhaging fuel out of here at first. The one freeze plug, we did some freeze plug work on this when we first got it. The cooling system is decent on it, but it did try to rust through some of the freeze plugs, expansion plugs in the block. The back one on the driver's side is now dripping green stuff. You know, the only one we didn't do on this side. And why didn't we do it? I don't know, because I don't know. But I mean, the oil cinder's in the way, but that's like one little thing. Anyway, we're gonna do it now. And then it used to have just a little bit of brakes, but when we pulled it in the shop here, luckily the old bias plies were flat spotted and it lumbered to a stop right here because now it's got exactly 0 brakes. We did go back and watch it. We did do the clutch brake master cylinder, so we should be good here. But now we got to figure out where our fluid went elsewhere. And the reason, I believe, if I remember correctly, we're doing all wheel cylinders right out of the gate is when we tried to make the brakes better last summer, I think the bleeder valves broke off on one or both sides in the rear. So we're just gonna do that. Shoes, And we'll see how the hoses are. If there's any question, we'll get those too. Let's see what we got underneath the dust cap here. Ooh, grease looks good. I didn't bring a rag over here. Should have, I know. All right. Now, when you take these off, if you have long ET fingers like me, you can just kind of take your thumb and go right here. Right like that. And then, well, nope, the shoes are going to hold on. So that's not going to work. I thought we might just pull it right off. Easy way to get the bearings out, the outer anyway. Take you, this is just a cheap, but it's a strong magnet. Take it out just like that. Way less fighting. And now we can wrestle with this drum without worrying about that bearing falling out and getting all kinds of extra dirty and stuff. Let's get back in here and see if it'll let go for us. We might be making headway. No, we're not. The back shoe's sliding off. And the front is too a little bit. Yeah, we're going all right. We're not gonna have to get any flames out or nothing. It's coming off, all right. Sometimes you gotta cut the shoe retaining pins and just let them fold out and do all kinds of other stuff. But I think, yeah, we're gonna get these right off of here. There. Not too shabby. Those shoes are nice, actually. Huh. Very cool. The drum's a little grooved, but not too bad. Yeah, there's quite a bit of shoe left there. So we'll go ahead and replace on them, but not looking too bad. I'm sure we've got some issues with that wheel cylinder though. Well, we had what you might call a setback. Pretty minor one, but a setback nonetheless, and a couple actually, because, well, first of all, we didn't order wheel seals, and we pulled this drum off, and this is the condition of the old wheel seal. It looks like somebody installed it with a pickaxe or a air hammer or something like that. We did have a CR number on it, and it crossed to an SK number. So we did a little digging on the Googles and found out that the Napa store in our little town had to. So that was okay. So just for giggles then, we punched in brake hose information, and they also had 2 front brake hoses and the rear brake hose. So, you know, not quite rock hard auto prices, but in our small town, and you know, you gotta shop local too, dudes and dudettes. So we got our hosers, we got our seals, and then we had to do a little bit of work on a customer rig this afternoon. So it is evening time, well into evening time. We're gonna work for about 2 hours here, and then we gotta get sleep because tomorrow Jalen and I are going on an adventure with some friends about an hour west of here. Huge demolition derby show. And so we're gonna spend an entire Saturday watching carnage. We did get the Cooper Cobras on the wheels. So that's what those look like. And here's one just kind of dangling for reference. So yeah, I'm excited about that. They're gonna fill up the wheel well pretty good and have just enough of a meaty appearance that I think we'll be happy. But I'd kind of like to get them slid on there. We aren't gonna make it that far in 2 hours because we're doing hoses. We might get the front done in 2 hours. That would be a good, intermediate goal, I think. So let's shoot for that. I just hate when things are stuck and can't be moved around more than anything. So enough rambling. Let's get this passenger side fixed up. And the first thing we got to do, we haven't even opened the brake shoe boxes to make sure that they're the same. And that could be another setback. Let's check. Well, let's see here. Did we get lucky? I think... Nope, different diameter. Son of a biscuit. You guys. Yeah, we got another setback here. These are the right width, but they're not the right diameter. Oh, golly. In our other box, we've got looks like same story. Oh, golly. Here's the scoop. These shoes, they're old style riveted shoes. They've got plenty of material on them. The material's not loose, it's not flaking. We're gonna roll them. We'll put a wheel cylinder, we're gonna put those old shoes right back on. I don't have an issue with that. If you have an issue with that, tippy tap the comments, tell me why, but I don't see any cracking. No organic shoes, of course, they're old. No cracking, no coming loose. The rivets are still holding on strong. That's what we're gonna do. Hopefully the other side's as good. All right, so now I have extra brake shoes for some sort of an international, probably, I think these might be 12s. I thought 12-inch drums, and these must be for 11s. But that's where we're at, reusing shoes. All right, the hard line goes into this hose straight, it elbows, but it goes straight into this hose. On the other side of this, it's threaded. There's a jam nut. We got the jam nut loose. We got the hard line off. And then we took our 2 bolts off of the wheel cylinder here. It's not necessary. If you're going to change the hose, don't fight this connection back here. These back here are always the worst ones. Just leave it because the hose is coming off anyway. So now we just got to give this a little tippy tap. And then we take our hose out the wheel cylinder hole and don't have to fight this guy right here. And for the record, this bleeder's broken off too. I don't know if I did that or if it was already broken off. We've got that on that end. We've got this on this end. So it should right into our wheel cylinder. Let's unpackage that bad right now. It's threading on. So we'll find a copper washer. There ain't one in the bag. And is there one in the box? Nope. That's all right. We've got some. That's why you save that kind of stuff, guys and gals, dudes and dudettes. Yeah. Let's get some brake clean. We'll give this a little brush in and a little spray with some brake cleaner. Let that clean off and dry off. Let that clean off. We'll let that get clean and dry off, and then we'll reassemble. Next day alert. I left my baldness cover in the house, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. I don't want to walk all the way over there just for a hat right now. We finished the passenger side. It's back together. Everything's happy. New hose, new wheel cylinder. We reused the old shoes. They look just fine. No cracks, no gouges, no loosening, no delamination or rivets letting go. Same thing on the passenger side. We cleaned everything up. New wheel cylinder. I know it's got a little rust here because, you know, I put the box in the truck for storage of the parts. And yeah, maybe not store parts in a box on the floor of your project truck if your project truck has a compromised windshield seal and takes on water. Anyway, though, it did not get moisture, did not get to the working side of this. It's just cosmetic, so it's going to be fine. We got our other brake hose over here. It goes into some bracketries that allows the fluid to go to the rear brakes on the other side of this, but really wasn't too bad. I was scared at first, and then things went okay. So shoes are on over here. The self-adjuster was frozen. We loosened that up and lubricated that. Shoes are back on. Like I said, now we're going to dump freshly greased bearings back into the hub. We'll do that. We'll put a wheel seal on, and then the front brakes on this truck should be pretty good to go after a little bit of bleeding. We'll jump on the backs next, and yeah, hopefully have this thing rolling and stopping pretty soon. I don't know if I should apologize or not, but if you're watching this channel and you want to see some of this basic stuff, holler and I'll slow down and we'll show you some of the basics. But you just tippy tap this in with a nice little peen ball, and you know, be careful, get it all going in at the same time, and go around and around and around until you go from hearing a thud to hearing a rap, and that means it's flush all the way around. So the seal's in. We're ready here. We smeared just a little bit of the red grease on the spindle. You want to make sure that you have a little bit of lubrication, especially on these old rigs. And some of the newer cars, they'll put a little radius here on this lip where the seal needs to ride up. This guy doesn't have anything. I mean, it's like a 90-degree edge there. So you want something to help that seal lip get over and not just, you know, potentially tear going on with the hub assembly. So we're ready now. I am going to get you in on the action on this part just because I felt like it. Wipe the hands off again and plan on it. I mean, when I do these wheel bearing jobs, it's a full roll of the blue towels, the blue shop towels. And we're just gonna lift this up, get our head in back behind here so we know we're kind of centered. Our shoes are backed off quite a bit, and then you'll get to where you can feel you're on that shoulder. It's not the bearing. Come on now. That's that hard edge is what it is. There, right there. So now we've got the seal resting where it rides. Now we'll take a little schmoo of the red stuff, come inside of here, and you can be pretty liberal with your application of a little bit extra grease in behind that outer bearing. And then with our hand that's kind of clean, we've got our outer bearing all greased up. Slide that in there. Our washer with the groove. And now's a good time to remind yourself where your cotter key holes are. This is drilled two ways. So we've got here and here. We can put a key in either of those two directions. And then our retainer nut. There we go. Spin it a little bit. Tighten this down. Seat those bearings back where they came from. Now that we're snugged up, you can tell it's got a little more drag on it. We're going to check this nut one more time. And it's, I mean, it's not that tight, guys and dudes and dudettes. You can wiggle a little bit, make sure you don't have any bearing play. Thick or small pliers. I just take the long end, I put the long end on the upside or the outside. We'll smash him flat up against the spindle. And this one, the short side, will bend down. And smash him flat against the nut like that. And our bearings are in. Now some dudes and dudettes will be like, you gotta fill this cap with grease and slam it on there so everything's full of grease. No, you don't need to do that. You just have to clean that out the next time you do your bearings if you do that. We are gonna put a schmoo in here though, because this dust cap is just kind of a force fit here. And then we'll have that grease to kind of back it up to keep water and other contaminants out of this hub. All right, fronts are on. We're gonna go ahead and adjust on them and get them to where we think they're pretty close. And then we're gonna go to the backs. And then once the backs are all happy, we'll bleed everything. Okay, we're down here on the driver's side. The passenger side is done. What you're looking for when you're adjusting these, there's a little star wheel in there. You saw the adjuster. And now you turn that star one way to expand the shoes. It'll go out like this. The other way, if you turn it the way that it screws in, it'll contract. So you got to be careful. This window and this system is basic enough. We can actually see in there and see which direction the threads are going. So for this one, we're taking our little, and oh, by the way, I do believe, you know, a screwdriver works for this, but for $3 or $4 or $5 or $6, go get you a brake spoon. But we're gonna be pulling down, moving that spoon up to move this side of that wheel down. Now, a lot of people are like, well, how tight do you want these drum brakes? That's a great question. We've been on this for just a little bit. Listen to that, they're just starting to drag. All right, and we've had the drum off, we've had the shoes off, or if you put new shoes on, realize that the first time you go in and adjust these, the shoes will adjust out to where they start to drag, but they might not be even. You're gonna have to step on the brakes and use the brakes a couple of times to get those shoes happy to where they're engaging the drum all the way around, and then you're probably gonna have to come back here and readjust some. But for the initial adjustment and any future adjustment on drum brakes, we're gonna pull down here maybe once. We get a little bit tighter, and maybe one more, half one. You want it so when you pull down on it and you let go, it doesn't get far. And you see we're already kind of wearing in. So we're gonna complete that and click it over that spring. That's perfect right there. It's not gonna get too hot. It's not gonna drag. It's gonna wear in nicely as soon as we start driving this truck. So that's how you adjust your star wheel and your drum brakes. The other good news is while we were messing around with the star adjusters, both of our wheel cylinders gravity bled. So we've got the system pretty well bled out for the fronts on both sides. And we are on to the rears. Next day alert. We are back. It's all, I mean, we had everything done except putting the wheels and tires back on the front. The rears, we're waiting on a hub puller, so we still got to do the rear brakes, but I had to see it with the new shoes. I'm liking what I'm seeing. The front looks perfect, I think. The back, we might have to go with something a tickle bit meatier. And yeah, we need more fillage. We'll see, but I'm gonna back it out of here, and then before we get the backs all done, we still have to, you know, empty out the remnants of the shop upgrade project and other stuff you know, it just became a storage unit for a little while we had to do some work in here over the winter. So you tell me, tippy tap down in the keyboards if, you know, we need a little more meat in the back. I think the front's looking pretty good right now. I do think we've got too much unused real estate back here. So well, sorry about the wind, but yeah, Mackie seems to like it. I think it looks pretty good. We might do something a little meatier in the back, but I think it looks darn good, you guys. The stance is pretty good, all things considered. It has 0 brakes, so I couldn't take it down the road, but all in all, I'm pleased with it so far. We'll get the backs fixed up, and then we'll dig a little deeper on, you know, road testing. It is shipping from Illinois days later, and here's what we got. This is a Chinesium knockoff of the puller that we need. A big ginormous 3-arm puller. We're not going to use this guy because we'll use the impacts that goes on the top to turn it. You can hit this with a hammer. We're going to use the impact. But yeah, let's go over and attach this. We'll show you what it looks like here. So your basic puller action here, and we're going to leave the nut on just a little bit because we don't want this to, you know, sometimes these will come off in a hurry and that could be a problem. Okay, so 3 arms on there. We're going to go 3 studs, and then there's a little slot in here, and then you got to work this guy in, oops, like so, and then rotate I'm gonna have to take one of these off. Rotate that one in there. This guy's gotta come. It hurts my ears when I do that. There we go. He's gonna have to come in. Well, how did I do that? There, like that. And then rotate a little bit more. Okay, I think we're in a good place. And we pre-lubricated the threads on our center bolt here. I know this is Chinesium, but it looks to be in pretty decent piece. A little concerned about this cast circular section, you know, but we'll see what it gives here. All right, we're set up. We went ahead and snugged these down pretty good on the 3 lugs. And then we've got our center screw hand tight up against the end of the axle stub. 1.125". I think it's technically a 28mm head on this, but 1.125" fits, so that's what we're using. And then let's see, we'll go on 3, and it should just, hopefully it'll pop off. You know, we've already had a lot of PB on this and used heat a little bit and everything else. So there it went. There it went. Slicker than snot. And snot's, from what I understand, pretty slick. Oh yeah, just like that. She comes right off now. Looky there. Very awesome. We've got good shoes back here too. Boy. We got a double-sided wheel cylinder back here. We're gonna have to look in our boxes and see what's in our boxes. I haven't even looked yet. Ooh-wee. All right, there is a lip seal in here. I don't know if we're going to be able to find that today or not. So we got that issue as well. I do believe, let's look back in here. We might have a greased, I think we might have a greased wheel bearing instead of an oiled wheel bearing. But we'll figure that out. We might take this end cap off here once we get things kind of loose and cleaned up. The drums, you know, all things considered, isn't horrible. And for the record, it had to come off that way no matter what. It's part of the hub assembly, period. We're good. I think anyway. We got a double-sided wheel cylinder here, and then let's, about the right size there. We'll make sure that we've got voltages that are about the right distance apart. We got a bleeder. I must have the wrong one. We got to get the one that the hose, or yeah, the brake line hooks up to the other side here. But otherwise, I think we're in good shape. The one question mark is the wheel seal, and we'll get to that here just as quickly as we can, so that we might be able to source that today. All right, a little semi-pro tip for you here. This brake line is cobbled up here and pinched here and here where it goes into the wheel cylinder. Plus it's old and rusty and nasty. That one is actually has a larger diameter tube brazed onto the brake line. And so we're replacing that section of hardline in this section. So we don't need to really fight with these fittings here right now. We're just going to take a cutoff wheel and zip zap that and zip zap there, and then it'll be a lot easier to get these fittings out of this metering block, and then we can put our new hose on easier that way too. Here's what I'm talking about. Now we can take this T, put it in a vise, and a lot easier to get this hose undone, this old hose now. That one out and the new one in as well. That's junk. We haven't decided yet if we're reusing these ends for these fittings, for these flared fittings. So we'll take a nice 6-point socket, and now we can get those out a lot easier too than if we had fought them underneath the truck there. And if we need to, we can just tippy tap what's left of that brake line out of that fitting and reuse that fitting. I think we got new ones, but we'll have to look at our stash. And the other side, same thing. There we go. A lot easier on a bench in a vise and lying down underneath a truck. Piece of gravy. Now we can come back in with our new brake line, brake hose anyway. No copper washer here, that's a flare fit. We're ready to go back in. Now we got to bend a couple brake lines. Fun times. Well, we went to reuse one of the old fittings, and I'm glad that we checked, because here, it's different size. We must have, I think we've got 1/8" brake line, and this must be 3/16 maybe. Anyway, so you get to see both ways, and rather than try and find fittings because we've only got a couple and we need 4, we're just going to get out the baling wire and measure how long each one of these sections we want needs to be, and we're going to run into Irish quick and just buy 2 sections of brake line with the correct fittings on them. So now it's not rocket science. We basically It can be kinkled up. It's just got to be close. So we come down. We're going to come down here. We're going to bend this across here. Something like that. And then we're going to come catch our little keeper here. And then we're going to maybe make one bend to go up into here. So about like that. And then we'll straighten this out, measure it, and that's how long we'll get that one. We are back from Irish. We got our new hose and our brass tee is mounted up here solid. And we have our shorter length. We couldn't get this in 24, you get 20 or 30. So we got the 30 and we're gonna have to flare it right about here. But we've got, by the way, on these new pieces of brake line, they give you one kind of long nut for the flared in on one end and then a regular shorter one on the other end. If anybody out there knows why you get a long one on one end and short on the other, tippy tap, because you don't see them factory in the elongated form. Anywho, we need to mark this now. We made a couple bendy bands. This again is the same copper coated steel core. It's pretty soft stuff, easy to bend by hand even. And we're gonna flare it right in here is where our flare is gonna be. So we're gonna cut it somewhere down here or something. We'll just make 2 marks so we know that not to cut it right on the first mark. All right, back to the bench. All right, we're over on the bench again. We're gonna flare this. We cut it right in between our 2 marks. We're gonna give ourselves a little bit of leeway. We can make that up with a couple little extra bends in here if we have to. But here's the type of tool I use. I don't have a fancy, air powered, electric powered, battery powered, nothing like this. I've owned this thing for 30 years. It works fine, and it works for what you need it to do. Anybody can buy these. I think they're less than 20 bucks now at the Irish or Amazonian or Fleabay or whatever. They handle a ton of different sizes. The most common size you're going to use when doing brake work anyway is the 3/16 size, which is the smallest one. And then for this application, we're doing the 1/4 inch size, which is the next one up. You can do fuel lines with these and put a flare on a fuel line or whatever. Now to set this up, everybody, the big thing is how far do you stick your cut off brake line up through the holding tool in order to get the appropriate amount of first flare. And what I do is I set whatever die I'm using, I'll set it on top of the tool, and then I'll have my metal line stick up about the same height, maybe just a hair more than this much of the shouldered tool. And that should work out pretty good. And the only other tool you need to operate this style of flaring tool is 1/2 inch wrench. It's a lot easier. You can do this portable. You can do it on the car and just hold it, and it's a little more difficult. It's really nice when you can pull the line out and put this in a vise. That's what this little thumb here is for. And that makes it a lot easier to kind of control how things move around. So anyway, for the first flare, you put your little nubbin down into the brake line like so. And then we're going to take the flaring tool go over, come down on top of that die, and then all you got to do is tighten the tool till it bottoms out. And loosen it up. You should be able to pull this out by hand. There we go. And that's what you want your first flare to look like. We're a little, if you can tell, we're a little off center. Not going to worry about that too much. We're going to go ahead now. That's a single flare. We are double flaring this. Brake lines are double flared. For the double flare, all we do is take that same tool. This time we're inserting it into the hole. And there's no mathematical equation here. This is just you watching the tool and trying to get a good flare, second flare. It should kind of center up. If it's still a little off center, don't worry too much about it. It'll probably still seal up if you put a little muscle into it. Now, just like that, after double flaring tool time, we're ready to rock. Now, if you put this in here and you don't leave enough sticking up right here, and you're not happy with that first flare and what that crown looks like, you can adjust a little bit. You can loosen this up, inch it up a little bit. You can't take away though. Pull this out of here. There we go. There's your finished product. And there's the nut. Goes on just like that. And we're a little lopsided, but I think it's going to seal just fine. So let's do this. We're going to go ahead and thread our wheel cylinder end into that, if we can. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. There we go. And we should be able to take this and do a little something like that, and then manipulate this nut to where it'll start into that T. You gotta carefully in this just a little bit, because the nuts on these brake lines are steel, and most often you're going to be turning them into something that's brass, which is quite a bit softer than most steels. Now we can feel that flare starting to hit, and we're just going to go a little bit more. And we'll leave a little bit. If we really need to wrench on this to stop a small leak or something, we'll be able to do that. And then we'll come off of the axle tube just a little bit. Make a little adjustment. There, that's, you know, hey. I'm not disappointed in that at all. That's what we like to see in the brake line flaring stuff. All right, driver's side brake. Oh, there goes the light. Anyway, brake line's done, wheel cylinders in. We're gonna put this hub on. We're gonna jump right over to the passenger side. We'll see you there. All right, somebody in the comment section's probably gonna catch on to this, so let's bring it up. We are reusing the wheel seal, the axle seal here. So we verified that the bearing assembly is captured. There's an inner seal and an outer seal. The inner seal keeps oil from coming into the bearings. It's greased, and there's a plug on the back side of the housing that we'll add grease to when we're all said and done. But this is a seal that has kind of this housing built into it, or this, it's behind here, but it looks very similar to this, and the seal insets in this dome here, and it's a fiber or a rope type seal. Now those are a little bit different than lip seals in that this one, if you can see right here, that entire width is the seal. It's not just one lip. And so on the hub, all of this, where my finger is here, all of this is sealed up. And it's really, really pretty happy. So it does appear that they may or may not make a lip seal replacement, but it doesn't come with this bracketry. And rather than risk really messing something up, I think it's going to be fine. We're going to put a little grease on this surface where the seal rides on the drum. We're going to go back together with it. I'm not worried about it. If something happens, we'll deal with it down the road. But it's a different style of seal, and it's going to take quite a bit for the grease to work through all this area here and get into the brakes. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be just fine with new wheel cylinders and brake lines. And again, really good looking new brake shoes. Well, we're over on the passenger side. It's all done. Yeah, I started jamming to some 80s rock. I just felt the need, and we just started wrenching. It's in the evening hours now, but everything's done under here. There were little slotted screws with like a, I don't know, whatever the big size grease zerk is on them, like a 3/8 fine thread. And so we had some zerks. So we put zerks in on each of these rear axle bearings and gave them about 10 pumps each. And then we got wheel cylinders in. Brake lines are all bent up. We got a little crazy going over the pumpkin, but I didn't want to have to re-flare that when it's flared from the factory. And then we're good over here. There's a little bit of fluid hanging around because we actually got the Mighty back out and bled the brakes. So, I mean, we're like almost done. We're gonna take the jack out from the back. We're gonna jack up the front, and I wanna adjustimate on those just a little bit because we've been pumping on them just a little bit. We wanna adjust them now, and then we'll be good to go. Tomorrow we've got an event in the morning. It'll be Saturday, and after that it's supposed to be a beautiful day. We might be cruising around in the Binder 110. Who knows? I almost forgot one very noteworthy thing underneath here. Let's show you. I'm going to rotate this tire forward. Watch that tire over there. If you know, you know. When they both turn the same way, that means Posse in 1962. Huh. 2 days later alert. Had something come up, couldn't pile into this yesterday, but here we are. To end this video, check out this brake pedal. Right there. It's right there. That's good brake pedal. So we readjusted the fronts. The backs are where we want them. Life is really good. We ran into another issue, and that's going to be on a new video. But for this one, brakes are done. That hub puller was a lifesaver. We spent way more time fiddling with the old pry the brake drum off, and it would have never come off as we showed you. But yeah, sometimes the right tool, even the Chinesium off-brand ones, are the way to go. Appreciate you watching this one. Hey, we got more binder stuff coming right up and all of our other old junk. So thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.